imagine you are a young preteen, and after years of suffering abuse of a sexual nature from your stepfather, your mother's response is, it's up to you if you want to go turn the person in, but if you do so, we'll be financially screwed. You have another sister who actually went, put in a report, 11-year-old girl, meaning she hasn't even approached her teens yet. Then she withdraws the story because the stepfather and the mother bullies her, because what happened is a form of bullying, I don't care how y'all see it, into taking it back. Ultimately, the girls are believed, and now the mother and stepfather have been indicted. The sour grapes of women who allow their children to be raped by a man who is not their biological father. And don't get me wrong, we can go back years where there were fathers doing this to their daughters, very rarely, but we know it happened. And where women now are increasingly having relations with young boys in school and then smiling in their mug shots and then crying crocodile tears after they've been caught. Let's take an unfortunate detour to Utah. Where a woman with children allowed 3 of her daughters, because when they say 3 of, I can make the assumption that there are a few more children in that house, to be intertwined into some nasty, unfortunate relations of a man she's been married to for a decade, then has the gall to tell these girls, if they go tell anyone, in a form of a guilt trip, that they'll be financially screwed. How hard is it to get out here and suffer and rather be on your own than to allow someone to touch your bloodline? Is that too much to ask? See, back then when this was happening to young women, there weren't resources to help you. And we lived in a society where it was a stigma to come out and say things. Before the internet, we'd already started gathering resources, and post this digital age, going into the AI age, there are still resources. So why do these women let this happen? And I know someone's going to tell me, oh, you're being judgmental. So this woman's other alternative wasn't to believe her daughters and not sit in a jail cell? See, what this woman misses the trick on is that the fact that he inappropriately touched 3, you don't even touch 1 because it's disgusting. The fact that grape went on with 3 of them tells me one thing, that it is highly likely that this man entered this relationship with her in a vulnerable state, knowing her desperation, knowing he can manipulate her to get to those girls all along. Because I read this entire article and it says nothing about any of the girls' biological father or fathers. Which means he likely knew, because I'm making speculation because we weren't told a lot, that there were no strong men in this situation to come up and protect those girls. So that he can go in and just do what he wanted to with them and then manipulate them into, if you say something, we're going to be broke. Why? Because she cared more about her financial well-being than them. That's what she's actually saying. I remember a YouTuber that's not on YouTube anymore. He got off fairly recently, and we were talking about abusive mothers. Because society makes it a taboo to still talk about that. But we'll go after a man in a minute, but not either a woman who was abusing on her own or a woman that sits back and allows it to happen. I'm in a fortunate position that none of my parents' partners were that type of abusive back then. But I said something on a forum about something bad that happened to me. And I can remember there was a lady, I remember her first name, and to this day this story comes to me several times a year, where she gave her part of the story in the comments. It was either the YouTube chat, because by that time that was around, or it was in the actual comment section. And she said something to the effect of, when I told my mother years ago my stepfather was doing it, she looked me in the eye, and I'm paraphrasing, told me, you better suck it up because he's paying these bills. And at the time, before I started to have a firm belief in God again, she's like, I know you forgive your mother, but I can't forgive for that. What was I going to tell her at the time? Some women know this happening and they'll go and crawl in a corner. Because if you read this article, the answer to the question is yes. She even told the authorities right away that she knew her husband was doing this to all three girls. So let's just get that out the way. See, some women go hide or sit downstairs and pretend they don't know. If I don't see it, out of sight, out of mind, when they know it's happening, right? This young woman that I spoke to over YouTube said it was happening to her, and her own mother looked her in the eye and said, you better suck it up because he pays these bills. How heartless can you be? See, the question I want to ask before I get off this, because this is just not something I can stay on, because it's just too depressing, okay, that this stuff is still happening, before we take our detour from Utah, okay? With all of the resources that are out there for women who suffer through things like this, why is it that they don't take advantage of those resources? Because you can't get over the fact that he did this to 3 of her daughters. The sour grapes of an unfit mother to allow this to happen to 3 of her children that were not his. Women never connect these dots. See, that man was watching you all along just to get to them, and he's gonna get to and know and understand your vulnerabilities and weaknesses in order to take advantage of them. And all she did was helped him when she said, well, we need this money, so I need y'all to shut up. Which means as they got 14, 15, 16 years old and started to develop more, he was just going to escalate. So now was the good time for him to say things. Or them to say things, my bad. Y'all want to get laid so bad that you'll sit and lay with a man that you know also shared your underage kids with you? You didn't see this? It's diabolical. And again, we can go back generations where things like this happened, but there were no resources back then. And we got a society of people messed up because they don't have nearly the resources that this person has in 2024. Which means every last one of those girls being under 18, we know for a fact was born in the 21st century when young girls and women have more resources now than they ever had 20th century and back. And you lay in the bed beside a man every night that you knew was doing this to them. Again, we can't speculate about the biological father or fathers because while they weren't mentioned, we don't know what happened in those situations either. But we can about gather that these girls were isolated, and this is how this type stuff can happen. I just don't have words for this. Well, I do because I just expressed plenty, so that was stupid to say. If you know you're not going to be fit to have children and you're of a weak and vulnerable mind, give those children to couples who actually want children and can't have them, or give them to responsible relatives. It's just that simple.